Okay, here we are on day one of Tour of America's Dairyland. We are racing in Kenosha today, and that is a fairly straightforward track, as you can see in the route listed up on the upper right-hand corner. I've got heart rate, which I set a new record for myself today. Watts over to the left as well, miles per hour, and the total mileage. For some reason, I don't know why I have that one there, but I think we reached 27 miles, just in case you want to watch that. And then the duration is off because I started the camera prior to the race. And I've got cadence. And then I'm trying a new experiment on the Brian Davis Races YouTube channel. We have the picture-in-picture rear view camera set up today as well, which is kind of neat. So there was a couple of crashes in this race, and that rear view camera might pick them up. We'll see what happens. So if you've watched my race casts before, you know that I don't watch them in advance, so all I've got is the knowledge of what happened to me yesterday. So this race was, temperature-wise, it was about 85, 86 degrees, somewhere in that neighborhood. Not a ton of wind. There is a wind on this section going into the headwind going into the start-finish line, and I really struggled finding the proper draft on that side of things, so maybe there wasn't really one to be had. When we were off the bike, there was really not much wind, so it wasn't much of a factor. So, in any event, pretty good field. There were 58 finishers, or 57 finishers perhaps, and I finished 28th. So I will apologize. I wish I was better and faster and could go up and dictate the pace and do some things like that, but that just doesn't seem to be in the cards for me. So I'm a mid-pack Masters 1, 2, 3 finisher, and my goal with these race casts are, one, if you're in the race, you can see maybe where you were or what happened, which is kind of fun. If you weren't in the race but want to learn a little bit more about how crit racing works, these are great. If you're stuck in the trainer in the winter and you'd rather listen to your own music but watch the footage, then just put my voice on mute and rock out. So that's what I'm after here. If you have specific questions about things I tried to do, which were not very many things in this race, then let me know. So the first couple laps were, I was really having a hard time finding my comfort zone and was definitely feeling overmatched. And then it just sort of clicked, maybe, excuse me, it sort of clicked about 10 laps in. I think we raced for an hour, right on the dot, so they gave us the laps to go when it was 27, so I imagine we did somewhere around 50 laps in that neighborhood. So the Strava, my best Strava was 109. I believe the KOM is 105 for this course. And this course has some pedigree. It has been a Super Week course apparently in the past. For those of you who don't remember Super Week, like me, it was I remember it, but it was definitely dying by the time I moved to the area and was aware of it and became a bicycle racer. Anyway, it was a big deal, and it is no longer in existence. But Tour of America's Dairyland has kind of taken over the reins as our Midwest premier racing series, and they do a good job. So hard to complain, and I won't, because they do a good job. And so really well organized. They've come a long way in the first couple years they started. Was still good, but now it's just really tight organization, and I really like the way they run the show. So hats off to them. And thank you, the city of Kenosha, for hosting us. All right, so there were a couple things happening in this race. There were two major teams, at least in my estimation. There was a group from Oklahoma, I believe, captained by Hunter East, and then our favorite boys mostly from Wisconsin here is the Intelligentsia squad in the red, black, and blue kits. They were definitely the two strongest teams on course. There were a few other teams that made their presence known, even though they were a little small. They raced really well. So I believe the Avant or Avanti, I don't remember if it has an I on it at the end or not, but they raced really well, I thought, in my limited ability to see what the heck was going on. But so there was a crash fairly early on in this. Let's see, that would be corner 3. We're approaching corner. I'm sorry, the crash was in corner 2. We're approaching corner 1 right now. And I don't know when that takes place, but it is Avant. There it is. There, no I on the end, so just Avant. Got it. And sponsored by Funkier. Like I say, they raced really well. So, from what I could tell. And then I believe that Oklahoma team is that yellow and black kit. There's 2 riders next to each other, 2 guys up. I'm pretty sure that's that team. So, not a ton of familiar faces to me in the field, so it was interesting coming from 3-4. So my story on racing Masters in this series is I raced Masters 3-4 for a number of years and got to the point where I was very competitive. I thought I had a shot at taking the overall one year, but it just didn't come together at all. So Fast Freddy took it that year, which was great. Fun guy to race with. But after a while racing the 3-4s, I felt like I was maybe sandbagging a little bit, so I needed to move up. So I catted up to a 2 on request, and then that sort of forced my hand into doing the Masters race. And then conveniently, the Tour of Americas Dairyland folks made the Masters category 40 plus instead of 35 plus, which is our normal state series is 35 plus. So that kept the field size last year fairly low. This year, I think the field size is perfect. So it's big, a lot of action, but it races like a Masters race, nice and smooth. People are safe, mostly. Not a lot of unnecessary risk taking. There were a few, but none of it was squirrely. And I mean, there's the difference between when you're racing the 4.5s or even the 3.4s. None of it was none of the hair-raising moments were caused by lack of skill. It was probably my lack of comfort with someone else's skill, if that makes sense. So a couple guys put their nose where I wouldn't have, and took some turns on the inside that I probably wouldn't have. But they pulled it off smooth as can be, so no complaints there. It's just something I'm not used to. I'm not used to racing with a big field like this, and I'm not used to let's see. I guess my rear view mirror is a bit off now that I'm looking at it. Yep, sure is. So I had a GoPro on the back, and then the Garmin is on the front. And that rear view mirror is racing in a completely different section of the course right now. So I'm going to chalk that up to a learning experience. I'm not going to bother messing around with it right now. So such is life. I have to say, the way that GoPro chops up the files is so frustrating. That's a huge advantage on the Garmin camera. You race for an hour, you get a 1 hour file. End of story. You race for an hour with a GoPro, you get 4, maybe 5 files. Just depends how they feel like chopping it up. So it just makes it a little bit more frustrating to deal with than the, oh, there was a crash. Mike Budd chose the right path. Thank you, Mike. And I don't know what happened to that guy. I mean, maybe a touch of wheels, whatever the case, but he just took himself out, which was better than taking half the field, which he certainly could have with where he was. But there was a nasty pothole right at the start-finish line, and I must have hit it every single lap. And every time I would hit it, I'd say, stop hitting that. But it shook my hands loose when I would hit it, so it was, it was definitely something to be concerned with. So there's Mike made the, well, again, sorry, rear view mirror. I don't know if that was before or after his incident there. So we wrapped up racing and then grabbed some chocolate milk. They give you free chocolate milk at the tour of Americas Dairyland. And then I headed off to home, in what I call the race to recovery. So Kenosha is about a 2-hour, 15-minute drive for me. So that was I think that's our longest drive of the week. And I drank a lot more water and fluids than I was thinking. So my normalized power on this race was really low. Was very surprising to me. It was only 267, and for reference, I did a training ride, kind of a race simulation road ride / group ride the other week, and that was 281, and that was a half hour longer than this race as well. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt good at the end. I felt good throughout after I got my warm-up in, but it's definitely hard to keep your position further up the field than in the 3/4s. In the 3/4s, I would always race in the top 5 guys the whole race, all the time. Never, without fail, you could find me there. And that's just not in the cards with the caliber of riders in the Masters 1, 2, 3 race. So be it. But and I'm happy with drifting to the back. After putting these videos together, I've realized that I'm not the best at drafting, so I've been working on that, and I've been working on trying to get more rest in the races. I've been working on trying to stay in the middle of the field, which comes at some risk, but I think it's paying off that I'm having much lower power numbers than I did previously. Although, like I mentioned in the beginning, my heart rate was off the charts for me. I guess I hit a high somewhere in there of 176, which is just crazy. I can't believe I did that. It almost sounds like maybe my Garmin picked up somebody else's strap or something, because that's just really high for me. And I don't feel like I was ever that gassed in this race. Not even in the sprint, and let me explain that. I mean, it's pretty early on, but I've been having a lot of problems with the bike I'm on. Today I'm on my Specialized tarmac with Campagnolo EPS, and I've been having a lot of problems with the EPS. So we switched chains. I got a new chain ring, and these didn't all happen on the same day. These are just different things we've tried. I got a warranty to front derailleur that was supposed to fix the problem. That doesn't fix the problem. So the problem is when I get in a 5311, I can drop the chain off the big ring, which is very frightening when you're in a sprint. So somewhere in this race, somebody's skirt, I got close to the front, and I felt an attack or a movement coming from behind me, and I was right. I saw the wheel, and I jumped to grab it to ride the wave further up, and the bike slipped up on the gears. It was felt like it almost lost the chain, but luckily it stayed on. And but it gets in your head. Once it's in your head like that, it's just really difficult to have faith in that bike. So needless to say, for day 2, I will be racing a different bicycle, and I'll be putting the tarmac in retirement mode for the remainder of the week, which is frustrating. And it's really frustrating because I've reached out to Campagnolo 3 times to try to get this rectified, and they just refuse to return emails or phone calls, and the US rep as well, so it's not like I'm calling Italy. So that's frustrating. I don't really know what to do about that. And it's still under warranty, so I guess I'll have to push that button at some point. I have until October. Anyway, personal problems, right? Who cares? So you can see with the Masters group, the first 10 minutes of this race were really hard. And it was maybe 2 laps ago when I was chattering. You saw the field mushroom out, so everybody slowed down, and they kind of got a little break. So I was describing to somebody the ebb and flow of a Masters race yesterday, actually. I should say the ebb and flow of this particular race. And my feeling is that the first 10 minutes are pretty bonkers. Everybody's fresh, feels great. And then there's kind of a little truce. And then things go sideways for a little while again. And then there's like a halftime. It almost seems like as soon as they put the lap counter mode into counting down the laps, that's when everybody readjusts their expectations of what's going to happen in this race. So it definitely gives you a chance to catch your breath. So it's good to just recognize that those things are going to happen. So when you're on the rivet and you feel like there's just no way I could do another lap, you just got to know everybody else is hurting too, and at some point there's going to be a respite. So in this race there were a couple breakaway attempts. Nothing got very serious at all. I don't think anybody even got a half a lap, which is interesting because there's some powerhouse teams, and I was shocked that they didn't figure out a way to get a couple members from each of their squads up the road and leave the rest of us behind. But maybe the first day of the series everybody's just too fresh. Even the independent guys like myself are just too fresh to let that happen, so, or too eager to try to get in the break themselves. That was definitely not in the cards for me, but there were a couple times I just happened to be on that tail end of a quote-unquote move, and if there would have been a separation, we would have been off to the races. But I guess just in some respects, I'm okay that didn't happen, although I wish my gears were working so I could get a decent sprint. So like I said, I finished 28th out of 57, I believe, of the finishers, and a couple crashes, so I'm not sure if those guys withdrew or if they were able to finish the race. So not sure how many people started, but we had 57 finishers. And yeah, I feel like I could have made up a couple spots in the sprint, not enough to care about, but it's just frustrating to have more firepower and not be able to use it because of your bike. So can't say I'm a fan of that situation. So that Cliff Bar kit there is his name just blasted out of my mind, but he was a pro for a few years, and golly, he's strong and can handle a bike too. So he did a few of these corners, and the first time I saw him do it, before I recognized who it was, I was like, oh man, what a dive bomb. And then he pulls it off and makes it look so easy. It's just like, oh, okay, well, I can't really fault him for that. So definitely a skilled bike handler and a powerhouse too. So that's gonna bug me. I might have to go look that up. So pretty sure it's Chad. And I misidentified him in one of my previous videos, so it'd be nice to get that right. Masters. So the winner yesterday, sorry, while I look for that, the winner yesterday was Robert White, who is also a former pro. I think that we had maybe at least 3 former pros that I'm aware of that were in the field yesterday. And, I domestic pro, still way more pro than me, but impressive to have that kind of firepower in this race. And I feel like, the way those guys race is very different than the way some of us are used to racing. So when they stick their wheel, sometimes in places I don't know that I would put it, you get that feeling like, oh, this isn't going to end well. But these guys are just so skilled on their bike. There's really not too much to worry about. So, but it takes you a little while to figure that out. That is for sure. All right. Let's see if I can find his name. Sorry, that's really bugging me. Somebody commented on a previous video with his name. But YouTube is not cooperating with me right now when I'm trying to look it up. So sorry about that. All right, well, there's a little bit of movement there. A little bit of movement there. You can, again, oh, there he goes. So he went off the front all by himself, which was pretty impressive after doing some movements previously. So it just gives you an idea of what kind of, and you know, he's clearly a little gained some weight over the last couple of years, or the last years being a pro. Is that I'm only saying that because someone put that comment in my previous YouTube video. But still, just the amount of power he has to just go wherever he wants to go is super impressive. So hats off. Okay. If you're hearing my voiceover and I'm saying that the picture-in-picture is way off, I'm gonna try to fix it, I guess. So if you hear this and it's fixed, then you'll know that I fixed it. All right, so here's a little separation. I think this is where somebody comes by me and I try to grab the wheel because there's maybe 6 or 7 guys up the road, and then this is where my chain kind of gives me a problem. Yep, and yeah, that's where the chain just goes bonkers. So it stayed on there, but it was dicey. So there I had a significant feeling that someone was going to come close this gap, and that gap was, you know, it was working on being a little something. So the person who came by is built like a barn door, so it was a great draft. So I saw him at the start-finish line. I was like, oh man, that'd be awesome to be behind those shoulders the whole race. And he just closes this thing down like it's nothing, so good for him. And good for me for being in the right spot to grab that wheel. And this kid here, these black and yellow Florida Velo, they were, maybe it's a different black and yellow. There were like 3 teams with black and yellow, so I got a little confused on who was who. So there, that brake got shut down with the field, and then that's enough of that. So I'm sure there'll be another attack shortly thereafter. You know, there was one moment in this race where coming down the start-finish line and somebody was just shelled from one of these little attacks, and I was just having trouble making up my mind on which way to go around them. And then afterwards I'm thinking, well, you really have to get that figured out. You know, you can't hesitate on where you want to put your bike. And it's just something to think about. Because there's definitely a speed difference when some of these guys are going really fast and sometimes they're not. So when they're not, you can't hesitate. You got to make a move and go around it. And you know, a lot of times we want to worry about the person behind us to some extent, at least in the group ride mentality, which I've talked about in the past. You want to worry about that a bit, but you just, in the race, that's just not something that you can afford to do. So alright, so we're getting fairly close to the halfway point in this race based on the mileage. So again, we raced for an hour, but the duration is wrong because the camera started at a different time. So these guys coming back, and then another move straight away right off the front. So now that one I thought had the right mix. I think it had a, yeah, they didn't push it, but it had the right team mix. Maybe that wasn't the one I was thinking. Now that's a Carlos attack there, which was definitely serious. So that's a huge kitchen sink sprint right there, you know, in the middle of a race, and that's hard for me to fathom how that works. I just can't recover from those type of efforts very well. So there, I just happened to grab the right wheel. I don't think there's a ton of riders behind me, but it might be strung out. I'm not sure. But Carlos just puts in a massive, almost a half a lap attack here. I think he'll come up for air right here. And see that nobody's doing anything yet. So maybe a little less than a half lap attack, but just brutal. So I let that gap up and figured because they had stopped, somebody else will shut that. Even that little bit I didn't want to do, so I'll just sink myself back into the pack here. It's a good time to do that because everybody's going to be single file after that attack, and then you can expect a little bit of mushrooming afterwards. Oh, look at that. So it's a good way to slip yourself back into the top 15 or so without having any drama associated with it. So the course itself, I mean, in terms of the pavement, there are a couple rough sections, but nothing too bad. On this back end, there's a little rock and roll with a chicane right here in the middle of the backside of the course. It doesn't seem like much, but there were a couple times that got a little dicey on either end of the curbs. One particular time, probably about three quarters of the way through this race, hopefully I'll be able to identify that. I was carrying just way more speed than everybody else, and that's what actually allowed me to get in a reasonable position into the final 3 laps and just scooted through that curb like that was kind of an all or nothing move. So the all was to get near the front, and the nothing was to lose my teeth. In retrospect, I don't think I would have done that move again, but it just sort of, that's how it all laid out. Well, that's John Bergman, I guess. I had the wrong person in my mind. So the Cliff Bar kit is John Bergman, 652, from Albany, California. Well, he looks more familiar than that. So, yeah, he finished 7th. Yeah, and he did put a move on with a few laps to go, a solo move, so pretty impressive to still recover enough to get 7th. So that was not who I thought it was. Well, he's got a doppelganger in the world, then, I think. So. No, I can stop perseverating on that, gentlemen. That would be great. So this little bar here, that looked fun. A little outdoor seating, a couple beers. That looked pretty good about 3 quarters of the way through this race. I thought, man, those guys might be having more fun than me. It was a good race. Overall safe. Like I said, there was 2 or 3 crashes in there. You're going to have that on the first day of a series like this. Everybody's hyped up and nervous and blah, blah, blah. But I'd say overall the race was really safe. Everybody raced like masters, which is nice. There's some silver lining to being a little bit older. So they score the 40s, 50s, and 60s, I believe 60s even, in different categories. So there's kind of a race within the race in the Masters category, which is great. That's just one more thing to keep in mind. I don't think it has anything to do with the way anybody races. I think everyone in this category is clearly racing for an overall win. I take that back. I suppose if they did the 60, then that might be different. As a 6-year-old guy might be racing to beat one or two other people, especially as the series goes on. You'll see your rivals, and you'll start to recognize their numbers and who they are and the bikes and things like that. So you'll pay more attention with where you need to be and who you need to beat specifically to improve your overall, if you care about such things. So yeah. That's how that works. Looking at the pro race results, and it looks like Florence Nauer from Stradelli Cycle down in Florida took the win. And I'm just hoping to find that other person's name. I still couldn't think of. Give up, Brian, give up. Okay. Alright, so back to racing. So, yeah. Alright, we are just over halfway through. Yes. And it's a couple times in this race I was at the very, very back end of things, and you know, it's hard to recognize that you're there until you turn your head around and realize that you're the last rider. It's not necessarily a huge deal with this size of field, but I shouldn't say that. It is kind of a huge deal because it's hard to move up. So you see the lead riders go through that turn, and then I go through turn maybe 5 seconds later. It doesn't seem like much, especially on the turns. You know, you always feel like, oh, they're right there. They're right there. I can do that. Yeah, it's not the case. So it's much harder to move up than you would think, or than it is in the lower categories. So it's an interesting change of strategy as you move up the categories from 4.5s. You see that type of thing. The guys right up the field, and you feel like, oh, I can do that. And you can. If you're a stronger 4.5, you can sit in the back pretty much the whole race until maybe 10 to go, and then pick your way up, or even 5 to go if you're that strong, and then move your way up, no problem. But in these types of races, it gets more and more difficult to move up. So last year, I only did one Tour of America's Dairyland race, and again, it was after I catted up to a 2. I thought I would take the year off from the Tour of America's Dairyland because I knew that I would not be on par to race this field. Now, I don't know how wise that was. So my fitness was still pretty good last year. And looking at my numbers in terms of the Training Peaks numbers, this year I'm a little lower than I was last year. But I feel like I'm down a little bit of weight, and my threshold is about the same, so that should be a better power to weight ratio. So I should be a little bit better off this year, but not enough to warrant taking a year off of racing. So I probably should have done more racing last year in the Masters category because I was 40 years old and I was able to do it, but I didn't. Such is life. But I did go down and try to help a couple teammates in a 2.3s race, and was promptly dismissed from that field last year. And a lot of that had to do with a lack of racing. I just didn't have enough racing miles on my legs to just pop into a race and have any effect. I felt like my fitness was really good. On the way down there, I had all kinds of thoughts about what I could do to help them, and in reality, I was totally useless to them and myself. So that field was straight line, start to finish, pretty much the whole race, or at least the whole race I was in it. So the 2.3s has guys from 18 years old all the way up to, you know, I raced it last year at 40, so all over the board, and they just race different. And the 2.3s race this year looked like it was a little bit of a smaller field than in years past. Maybe it's just that Thursday is hard for people to get off 2 extra days of work. So we'll see how it looks today on Friday. But yeah, I mean, so my teammates got a 5th and a 10th yesterday. Last year, our rider Andy Webb took the overall in the 2.3s, which is super impressive. So I've done maybe 3 2.3s races in my life, and I've never made it to the halfway point. So it just is a different style of racing. I don't understand it, why I'm so bad at that, but I am. So the rest of this week is shaping. I know I'm going to take Tuesday off. Tuesday is a it's called Schlitz Park. It has a massive uphill in it that's not very long, but it's super, super steep, and that is not a good place for me to be. Although 2 years ago when I was doing the 3.4s, I still showed up and participated, and I ended up getting 5 points out of that race or something like that, and that was able to put me on the podium for the overall, if there is such a thing. And I don't care about that in this series because I'm definitely not a factor, so there's no reason for me to go to Schlitz Park. So I'll save the driving, and I will go out Tuesday for a little spin of the legs, as I didn't do that previous years when I would skip Schlitz Park, and I think that cost me. So definitely will still ride Tuesday. I just won't drive all the way down there and race. And then Monday, it's tricky. I can finish the race, and if I don't do a cool down lap and jump straight in my car and drive home, I can get home in time to teach my my entrepreneurship class, but it's pretty tight. So I still haven't quite made up my mind on Monday. We'll see how the weekend goes and how my legs feel and if it's worth the extra effort. We'll see. All right. I didn't have any conversations with anybody during the race, which is a little odd for me. Usually I'm kind of talkative, so I guess that just has a lot to do with nerves and effort. So this guy showed up with that thing on his ankle. I don't know. I can only imagine he was involved in that crash, got it wrapped up, and then got going again. So I can't imagine somebody would race with that on their ankle at the start line, but I don't know. I could be wrong. So the one of the crashes, we saw the one in, at the start-finish line, but the other one was in turn 2, and I don't know. I have no idea what happened, but on the next lap, I think I only saw one rider that was getting some treatment. But maybe it was 2 riders over there. Not sure. So. Maybe there were just those 2. I feel like there was one other crash too, but oh well. Let's not talk about the crashing. So today's race is definitely more technical than this race. Yeah, there's at least 6 turns coming up on the Friday race here, so we'll see how that goes. But it was nice to start with this race. Pretty straightforward. And there's another time I grabbed the right wheel at the right time by happenstance, and I didn't feel like going all the way up there, so I just ducked back into this little top 10 rider, top 15, whatever the case is. So it's a good. I was really focused on sheltering myself as much as possible, and the way these turns get railed is it's impressive how much speed we're carrying through those turns. So that takes some getting used to as well. It's just pounding the bike into that turn and having some faith that it's going to work out. So, and it did every time. All right. So, yeah, again, it was interesting. The teamwork tactics, I couldn't see everything because I wasn't on the front a ton, but it was interesting to just be waiting the whole race for this mystery breakaway to take place that's going to include an Intelligentsia guy, the Oklahoma team, and maybe 1 or 2 other teams that just should have happened and blasted away with the race, but it never did. It all stuck together. So I'm not sure what was happening on the front. That was the glue to keep everybody at bay, but I don't know if it was a couple particular riders or a team that didn't want that to happen. I'm not sure if somebody has a mean sprint in their hands and just wants to make sure that it all stays together. I do not know that answer. Another thing I was trying to work on was keeping my cadence up, so I'm not quite sure. Oh, there was the one where I was having trouble making a decision. That almost cost me. So that guy was coming back like a bullet, and I was not prepared for that at that moment. So. But it's a nice part of riding with people that have experiences. When I darted over to get around him, the person next to me was able to either realize that I was going to do that and have a plan in place for my squirreliness there, or just when I did it, they were able to be calm and react appropriately. So this little shot up the alley here, you wait for that curve and then you go. That was a that was a good spot to move up a lot of places. If they left that alley open, which most laps it was left open, you could scoot up there and blast as long as you had some faith that people were going to move over when the curb opened up. I'm sorry, people weren't going to move over. That you could make it to the place where the curb opened up, and then you'd have a free shot to get up to the top 15 or top 10 riders. So that was a great place to do a lot of passing. And and I used that a couple times. But the time where I was the all or nothing I was referring to earlier was on the other side of the road, and I was either going to make it through that or I was going to hit the curb. So I made it! Yay! So we should have about 7 miles left, and that's maybe 10 laps, probably in that neighborhood, if I had to guess. I tried to see the lap counter. It's a digital lap counter, so it's hard to read on the video, but I tried to see that on our last adventure through the start-finish line. I couldn't make it out. So, but you can see the body language of people. It just starts to change a little bit. Everybody's a little more intense. Not that they weren't already, but it's definitely a little bit of a difference. So there you see, I saw those guys mushrooming out, and I thought, well, that'd be all right if I catch them, because no one's working too hard. I can close that quote-unquote gap and then be in the top 5. So that was all right. So I'm in a good spot, I thought. I think I remember this part of the race. There was maybe 10, like I said, it was probably 10 left. And I thought, oh, I'm doing okay. I might have to spend too much energy to stay in the top 5 or top 10, 15 riders with this many laps to go. I saw it was double digits there. Maybe it's 11 left at this point, but I was a little worried that that's too long to try to stay up top. Yeah, so you see some attacks here with these few laps going, and then I think part of that was everybody thought we're giving it so much effort and there's no traffic up here that we must have some sort of gap. That was not the case in reality, but I think that's what generated some of these smaller attacks. Is if it's already fragmented, if we put in a dig, maybe we can shut down people's desire to keep up. But that was not the case. It was a pretty intact field, that's for sure. So, now, depending if I fix this, I'm watching the rear view pre-fix if I don't fix it, and there was a little bit of a gap. So the video, the rear view must be delayed, if I had to guess. So I'll see if I can fix it. GoPro. Yeah. So you see the gentleman ahead of me looking around, sort of wondering if there's a gap. I'm sure that's what he's wondering and why he's looking a little bit. And I know that I did the same thing 1 or 2 times. I can assure you, my friend, there is no significant gap. So we got about 6 miles left, 5 miles left. It should be about 8 or 9 laps, I imagine. And I believe the person on the front, oh, they're closing that gap, might be Albertus Rolling. I think he was up there putting on a little display to bring back a move. So we brought those 2 guys back, and then we just keep rolling. So that was kind of cool. It was good to get sucked up into that moment, as I didn't have to, it was hard, but I didn't have to spend a ton of energy to stay in line, and be 5 riders back is pretty ideal in that situation. So 6 riders back, sorry. Pretty ideal in that situation. Yeah. Right. So the last couple laps were fairly safe. There was definitely, like, I feel like 3 to go. It got a little bunchy, and then one of the teams must have taken over and gotten things squared away. So, which is nice. It's nice to race with teams because you get a lot more predictability out of a race than a bunch of independents like I am. So, as an independent racer without a team, I don't have to close any gap. I can't really close any gaps. I mean, I can moves, I should say. I can close gaps, but not moves. And I'm probably not going to initiate a breakaway or anything along those lines. It's important to pay attention to the teams because if there is a breakaway, you need to know who's in it. If you're up that far, if you know who's in it, you know that that teammate, like the guy I just passed on my right, is not interested in helping because there is a teammate of his up in this little 8 or 10 man move, whatever you want to call that. So he's purposely letting that gap open up, which is smart racing. You just have to recognize why he's doing that and not hold that wheel. So we'll see. There's our Cliff Bar friend. Maybe this is where he goes off on his own. Yeah, he carries that speed through, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll just do that." So he's going to make that work. I'm not sure this. I'm not sure what this one is. These guys did this a couple times. Can't quite make out that team. If that's the Oklahoma boys or what, but I think they sensed some concern with the Cliff Bar rider moving up on his own. So I think the hand raising was this gentleman calling out for some help to have somebody come up from his team to shut that down, which is great. And I think he does that hand-raising thing another couple times as he gets a little concerned about that Cliff Bar rider going up the road by himself. Yeah. So I'm thinking, like, does he have a flat or, in the race I'm thinking that. I'm not sure. It just didn't click with me that he was calling for teammates until I'm watching this. So that's interesting. So that solo rider's up the road. Those two up there go. I tuck in behind this gentleman. Yeah, and then the bees swarm. So they close those two down. And that's pretty much all anybody wants to do. So the other, yeah, see, he's doing it too. I'm not sure what that means. I guess I'd have to ask them. Pretty sure they're looking for teammates to go shut that move down. So, if I had recognized that, I guess I would know that someone from that team is going to take the mantle up here, and they're going to put on an effort up front to bring that solo rider back. So get ready for some effort coming, which I guess is taking place right now. And I could almost make that out. It's definitely single digits left. So the Avant guy, I would be curious to see, yep, there's an Avant rider second wheel. So that Avant guy I just passed is not interested in closing the gap. So they're still trying, even with this few laps left, I mean, people are still trying to get some separation. So just, again, things to be aware of. Keeping your mind about you in the race as much as you can. It's hard for me in this race because I spent so much time further back. It's hard for me to have a lot of input or knowledge on what's happening. But that's life. So here with this few laps left, I'm feeling pretty good being in this spot. Now, I'm pretty sure here I get filtered to much further back than I want to be. And then I have a bit of a move to get back into some reasonable contention. We'll see. We'll see if I can find it in the footage. So there's a lot of guys with the wheels that I ride with on the tarmac that I had today are Zip 202s. They're much older. They're dimpled, but not Firecrest. They're fine, whatever. But I like those shallower, snappy wheels, but there's definitely still a lot of guys with the deeper dish wheels. And today I'll be on a 404-808 combo on my aero bike, but it's just so dang heavy. It's hard to get that thing up to sprinting speed, and it works great on an already high-speed sprint. It works well, but coming out of corners, it's just a lot of bike and wheel to push around in my opinion. But it works, and I don't lose the chain, so I'm going with that bike, and I love it because I won't lose the chain. So kudos to SRAM for having a rock solid drivetrain on their E-Tech. Although I just had to warranty the front derailleur on that one, but anyway, they took care of it easy peasy, so no knock on them. All right, now I drifted a little further back than I want to be at this stage of the race. And to some extent, I don't have a choice. You know, these guys are just, a lot of these guys are a lot stronger than me, and there's not much I can do about popping up 10 or 15 guys just because I feel like it. In fact, there's virtually nothing I can do to pop up 10 or 15 guys just because I feel like it. So we'll see if I get to the outside. This might be the lap where I was able to dart up a few positions without regard to the curb. So here it goes. This is the part I was thinking, because this is going a little bunchier than I want at this stage of the race. So this is not a safe combination of a lot of riders with few laps. That is not a good thing. I don't know if I'm going to find that moment. Yeah, I'm definitely feeling mid-pack to late pack at this point, and that's not good with this few laps left. Let's see, but my heart rate is also pegged, you know, so there's, like I said, there's just not a whole lot of choice I have in the matter. Not sure who's on front, drilling the pace, but they're doing a nice job. So now it's starting to straighten up, a little bit at least. We're going faster. Can't be too many laps left. We finished with 27 miles. That was after a cool-down lap, so couldn't make it out there. But I sure did run over that pothole again. Alright, now there's one time, I think in the last lap or second to last lap, I don't think you'll be able to see it, but in this corner I closed the door on somebody. I could see a shadow wanting to come around and dive bomb it, and I just extended my body out that direction so he couldn't come around me safely and dive bomb the other guys. And that was less effort for me to not have to worry about somebody disrupting the pace of guys ahead of me. There wouldn't be enough room for me to grab that wheel and just scoot along with them. So that was a good move to close the door, I mean. So yeah, we're really bunched up with not many laps left. Oy, oy, oy. Maybe the mileage is not. Sorry. The mileage might have started when I started the camera too, which would make the mileage go over what the Garmin said at the end of the race. So we'll see. Which is, I guess, good, because maybe we'll see the footage where I move up a lot of spots. And this is not the part where I closed the door either, so I'm not sure where that was. Alright, 169, 168 heart rate, that's a lot for me. Somewhere in this race I hit 176, which is an absolute record for me. I don't think I've hit 176 since I was probably 18 years old or something like that. So my heart just doesn't go that high anymore, or ever really. Alright, so I think there's 5 minutes left in this race if I'm looking at the footage instead of anything else. So that should be, I guess, 4 laps left. So yeah, it's definitely getting a little more aggressive. So you can see the laps must be lower. And then you're seeing the team starting to amass. Intelligentsia is well represented in the middle here, but they need to move up, and I'm sure they will. I think this is the part. No, it's not. Yeah, maybe that's when I closed the door on that person that wanted to come around me. I'm not sure. It'll be very disappointing if we do get to see that, because you won't be able to tell, really. So now I'm way too far back. So I spent some effort staying in the top 10 or 15 riders with, I guess what then had to be 12 to go, something like that. And maybe that just, it wasn't a lot of effort, didn't feel too bad, but it's just a long time, a lot of concentration to keep yourself that far up the field. So again, it's easy to say these things, it's hard to actually do it out on the road. So being in a big group, you know, I'm definitely getting some rest, so that's not so bad. But like I said, it comes at a risk. If there's a crash, I'm definitely going to be in some trouble. So. Just passed our Cliff Bar friend, so he's back here with me. I think that sign said 3 to go, and I think he ended up finishing 5th or so. So be interesting to see if we can spot him move up the field and how he accomplishes that versus how I do it, if I do it. So I think this is the one where I screw along the outside because I'm already over there. All right. Oh, maybe not. Yep. All right. So this is going to be tight. That is for sure. So there's a lap rider or somebody over there, and we are getting skinny right there. But I carried so much speed through that corner that I was able to pass, you know, at least 10 or 15 guys. And now I'm feeling like, oh, wow, all right, I got a decent spot. So I just got to filter my way into the group, catch a little breath. I think that gentleman put in an effort, so he's filtering back after trying to string things out. And still, even after jumping all those guys, I'm still really far back. Yeah, that's not going to be effective. And my bike is on my mind too. So I've already decided I'm absolutely positively not going to be standing up and sprinting. I'll be seated. I may stand up for 1 or 2 revolutions, but that's it. I don't want to lose the chain and risk taking people out or myself. So that's definitely on my mind at this point of the race, which is unfortunate. So still really bunched up. You know, I mean, if I were fitter, I could have gotten around a lot of those people on that part of the course. There's the Cliff Bar guy. He's sitting probably 10 riders ahead of me. So somehow he was able to magically move up the field like I did. And this might be the last lap. Not sure. You can hear my kids in the background. They're having fun. Oh, let's see. There's got to be one more to go. Yeah. Yep. One more to go. Okay. So we're definitely moving. Do I have miles per hour on here? 34 miles an hour. 1 to go. And this big boy here in that blue kit with the deep dish wheels, I follow him pretty much all the way into the finish. Close to it. So still moving, you know, still picking up riders. I'm feeling good. I still have a lot more sprint left in my legs at this point. But the bike, I know, is just not cooperating. So, you know, I'm able to hang at this part of the race, which is definitely a confidence builder for me. So hopefully coming into today, I'll have a little more confidence. So there's definitely guys in this race that are Cat 1 caliber and guys that are Cat 2-3 caliber, and I think I really am somewhere in the middle. And that's right where I finish, somewhere in the middle. So it all makes sense, doesn't it? This turn I took on the outside, and that might have been, yeah, I don't know, what are you going to do? So, again, I couldn't pass anybody. I'm seated and sprinting here. And, you know, when you're sprinting for 28th, it's kind of ridiculous to be too dangerous, so take it easy. But I definitely had a lot more sprint in my legs than my bike was going to let me do today. So, oh well, that's the race. So on to, yeah, I don't know, somewhere in Wisconsin today for the next race. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have a good one.